I'm Hank, and a seemingly hot take I have in the Hunter x Hunter world is that I really like the Greed Island arc. I really enjoyed the intriguing and complex world that Greed Island offered, and it made watching that arc really enjoyable to me. And like I said, some of the aspects and rules of Greed Island got pretty hard to follow and got pretty complex. And one of the most confusing things to understand was who created the game. We know that Gene Freaks, Gon's father, created Greed Island, but that was alongside the help of 10 other friends called Game Masters. And we don't have a lot of info on these Game Masters. So I've done a good bit of research and found all the info on the Game Masters that I could, and that's what I'm explaining in today's video. But before we can talk about the creators of Greed Island, we first need to understand what exactly Greed Island is. Greed Island, at a very basic level, is a video game meant to be played by hunters. Greed Island was first introduced to the public in 1987 to the Joystation console by Gon's father, Gene Freaks. The game was produced and sold by a company called Marlin Inc. with an original price tag of $5.8 billion. There was over 20,000 pre-orders for the game, while there's only 100 copies produced. Soon after the initial sales, the game disappeared from the market in 1998, and soon reappeared in auctions for incredibly inflated prices, with prices for a copy of Greed Island going up to tens of billions of dollars. Greed Island is much different than a traditional video game, given the fact that a player's body is actually transported into the world of Greed Island, which is actually a real place on the world map. It's located east of the Yorbian continent, and the Phantom Troop was able to find the island from the outside, but got bodied by Razor. A player can only be released from the game if they die, in which they die in real life, win the game, or choose to leave the game through use of a card or other methods. This game is only playable by nin users, and a game player must collect all 100 designated slot cards to win the game. I'm not going to go any further into the actual specifications of the game, because I do plan to make a video on it in the future, but now onto the Game Masters. Like I mentioned earlier, Greed Island was created by Gene Freaks alongside the help of his 10 friends, also known as Game Masters. And as you might know, the game name, Greed Island, is actually an acronym for the creators of the game. Each letter in Greed Island represents the first letter of a Game Master's name. And as of right now in the series, we know 6 of these 11 people in the acronym. And I'm going to be going down the acronym letter by letter, explaining the game master that matches with this letter. And for the letters that we don't know, I'm going to be going over the possibilities of who it could be. The first game master being none other than Gene Freaks, being the G in Greed Island. Like I said earlier, Gene is the lead developer of Greed Island and one of the most talented hunters in the entire world. I'm sure you guys know a lot on Gene, but this man was really set on creating this game. He was the one with the idea to use the Game Master's names as the acronym for the game, and he even made a man change his legal name to fit the acronym. And he also has no problem with working with convicted criminals, murderers, and any other odd people to create the game, but we'll get more into those individuals later on in the video. The next game master that we all know is Razor, the man in charge of the game's emissive systems, which basically means that he's the one in charge of making sure that all the spell cards work. Razor is also the first line of defense for Greed Island, shown when he used the Eliminate card to get rid of the Phantom Troop members when they try to pull up on the island from the outside world. Razor holds a Plot of Beach card, and is in charge of multiple death row inmates inside of Greed Island. Razor, despite his friendly attitude, is actually a death row criminal himself, but he was hired by Gene to help create Greed Island. He has high respect for Gene and treated his son Gon with the same respect when he met him. Along with this, Razor is also an insanely strong emitter, one of the strongest that we've seen in the entire series, and he has some pretty cool abilities that help him in dodgeball. The next 2 Greed Island Game Masters are a set of twin sisters named Etta and Elena, and names stand for the double E's in the word greed. The first sister, Etta, is in charge of introducing new players to the game. She's the first person that every Greed Island player meets when going into the games, and she explains the Greed Island rules to every incoming player and monitors every person inside of Greed Island, whether that be a player or an intruder. The following sister, Elena, operates from a tower at the island's port, and is in charge of players leaving the game, using spell cards like Leave or Transport Ticket, but that's about as much as we know on these Game Masters. The next Game Master is probably my favorite one. His name was originally spelled like this, but Gene made him change his name to start with a G to fit the Greed Island acronym. Dwan resides in a capital in Greed Island's capital, Lamero, and he gives any player that completes the game Emperor's Blessing, along with the case that allows the player to take 3 specified slot cards outside of the game. Dwan is an avid smoker and has a trashed room, which is a direct reference to the mangaka himself, Togashi, who, much like Dwan, has a tendency to live in filth. And that's every Game Master in the Greed part of the Greed Island acronym. Moving on to the Game Masters that make up the second part of the acronym, Island. And for the following 6 Game Masters, we only have one that's confirmed, that being the man who stands for the letter L, List. There's no confirmation as to who the I stands for, but there's good reason to believe that it's this guy, named HxH, a single-star hacker hunter. He's more than likely a game master considering the fact that the spell shop looks just like him, and the fact that he's also very in tune with technology. Another thing that I noticed is that HxH wears a shirt with the number 6 on it, which correlates to the place of his name in the acronym, but this could also represent his place in the election in the chairman election arc. So, now to talk about what Game Master the S represents. And to be completely honest, I've looked just about everywhere on the internet and I haven't been able to find any hints. The only theory as to who it could be I found on this Reddit post stating that it might be Saltots, the guy that was the first stage examiner of the Hunter exam. But this wouldn't make any sense because Saltot states that he would love to meet Gene, so If he hasn't met Jean, I heavily assume that he would not be a game master. The only other person I could possibly think of is this nurse from the chairman election arc. Her name is Sanbika, I think. She might have the ability that helped create the card Angel's Breath, but other than that and her name fitting the acronym, I have no idea. The next Game Master we do know gladly. The L in Island stands for List. He lives with Dwan in the castle of Greed Island, and we don't really know what he does. All we know is that he greets players after they beat the game. And he did get mad at Jean whenever he didn't want to meet Gon in the chairman election arc, but other than that, we have no idea what this guy does. On to the next suspected Game Master, being letter A. This Game Master hasn't been revealed yet, and all we have to go off of is that their name starts with an A, so not much. From all I could find, there's only a couple people whose name in the entire series starts with the letter A, so not much to choose from. The only person with a little bit of promise I could find was this person called Arnioba. She's a floor master of Heaven's Arena, and from that, we have literally no idea. I have no idea. This Game Master, I really have no idea. There's literally nothing I can go off of. The next potential Game Master hasn't been revealed yet in the series, but we have good reason to suspect that it might have been Netero. We do know that Jean and Netero had somewhat of a friendly relationship, considering the fact that Netero chose Jean to be a Zodiac of the Hunter Association. And we do know that Netero knew Jean's inabilities to an extent because they were sparring partners. We really don't have any other confirmation for this Game Master. And I can't think of literally any other person in the entire series that could fill this spot. Now on to our last potential Game Master, the second D in the acronym. And we have literally nothing on this Game Master. There's only 4 people in the entire series whose names start with D, that being Dwan, who's already a Game Master. This guy named Doster, who's a Greed Island player, so I don't think he'd be the Game Master. And this guy named Dalzalani, I think is his name. A Nostrad family bodyguard with Kurapika, so I don't think he's a Game Master of Greed Island. And this guy named Danjin, who's a provisional hunter in the Secession War arc that we know literally nothing about other than the fact that he's a provisional hunter. And there's just no way that he's a Game Master. So, and that's literally everything I could find on the Hunter x Hunter Game Masters. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like, subscribe, or don't. I appreciate even watching this far. But I've been Hank, and that was Greed Island Game Masters Explained. Bye.